I stood in the back of the church, clutching my invitation with trembling fingers as Marcus exchanged vows with Olivia, the same woman who orchestrated his car accident 3 years ago. The same accident that left him paralyzed. The same accident I nursed him back from, sacrificing my career, my savings, my life. This was the second time I'd lived through this moment. The first time, I collapsed in tears. This time, I smiled. Because in this life, I knew exactly what Olivia had done, and I had proof hidden in my purse that would destroy them both when the time was right. The pastor asked if anyone objected. Not yet, I thought. Not until they suffer like I did. 3 days after the wedding, as I watched Marcus's social media fill with honeymoon photos, I recalled the grueling months in the hospital after his accident. The beeping machines, the antiseptic smell that clung to my clothes for years, the way his hand felt cold in mine when the doctor said he might never walk again. I remembered his mother saying I was a saint for staying with him, not knowing her son would discard me the moment he could stand on his own. The bitter taste of coffee from the hospital vending machine still haunted my tongue. But this time around, I'd been collecting evidence of Olivia's involvement in the crash since my rebirth 2 years ago. While they honeymooned in Bali, I visited Marcus's mother under the guise of returning his old belongings. The frail woman welcomed me with open arms. She never understood why her son left such a devoted girlfriend. As we shared tea that smelled of bergamot and memories, I casually mentioned discovering strange payments from Olivia to a mechanic the week before Marcus's accident. I left a folder by mistake that contained bank statements and text messages. His mother's hands trembled as she picked it up, her eyes widening with each page she turned. When she called me later that night, her voice cracking with rage and disbelief, I pretended to be shocked by her discovery. Daniel, Marcus's best friend since childhood, met me for drinks at our old haunt, a bar with neon lights that cast everyone in shades of blue and red. He was angry, confused about the evidence Marcus's mother had shared with him. "This can't be true," he insisted, the ice in his whiskey clinking as his hand shook. The bass line of the music thumped in my chest as I revealed the final piece, the voice recording of Olivia promising the mechanic additional money if he made sure the brake lines were completely shot. Daniel's face drained of color as understanding dawned. "What do we do?" he asked. I shrugged innocently. "Nothing. They're married now. It's not our place." But I knew exactly what Daniel would do with this information. Exactly what he did in my first life when he discovered the truth too late. While shopping for groceries, my phone erupted with notifications. The harsh fluorescent lights of the supermarket made me squint as I read the headlines. Marcus had cut his honeymoon short, returning home amidst personal issues. The cold air from the refrigerated section raised goosebumps on my arms as I scrolled through frantic text messages from mutual friends. No one knew the full story yet, but Olivia's name was being whispered alongside words like investigation and criminal charges. I placed a bottle of expensive champagne in my cart. Not to celebrate, not yet, but to save for when justice was complete. The truth about Marcus's new bride slowly emerged. She wasn't just his ex before the accident. She was the woman who couldn't handle his budding success as an architect when they dated in college. His rising star threatened to outshine her modeling career. I recalled the night before my rebirth, when a dying Olivia confessed at my doorstep that she'd ordered the brake tampering to just scare him, never intending the cliffside crash that left him paralyzed. The smell of her expensive perfume mixed with the metallic scent of blood remained vivid in my memory. A confession that came too late in my first life, after Marcus had already died from complications of his injuries, after I'd already wasted years caring for a man who abandoned me. My own sister, Rebecca, entered the narrative as a supposed ally. She brought casseroles that filled my apartment with the comforting aroma of home, offered shoulders to cry on. Yet I knew her game. In my first life, she consoled me while secretly feeding information to Olivia, hoping to secure funding for her struggling business from Olivia's wealthy family. This time, I watched her carefully as she sat at my kitchen table, sunlight streaming through the blinds creating prison bar patterns across her concerned face. "You should move on," she suggested, picking at her nails the way she always did when lying. I nodded in agreement while my phone silently recorded her every word. Dr. James Chen, the physical therapist who helped Marcus regain mobility, presented himself as concerned for my well-being. The herbal tea he brought to our friendly chats smelled of lemongrass and deception. In my past life, I discovered too late that he'd been romantically involved with Olivia since before the accident. Another architect of my misery. This time, when he placed his hand sympathetically on mine, I didn't flinch away. Instead, I fed him carefully crafted misinformation while wearing the bracelet that housed my recording device. The man I once loved enough to sacrifice everything for revealed himself again. When he called me, voice tight with anger, demanding to know why I was spreading lies about his wife, the familiar coldness seeped back into my heart. Even with mounting evidence, he chose to believe Olivia's tears over facts. The sunset bled orange through my apartment window as he threatened legal action if I continued this vendetta. I said nothing about the additional evidence I possessed, nothing about the testimonies I'd gathered from the mechanic who was now willing to confess. I simply wished him happiness in his marriage and hung up, knowing that the seeds of doubt were already growing just as they did before. Olivia's mother, Vivian, the society maven who never approved of her daughter's relationship with Marcus until he became successful, approached me at the supermarket. The overpowering scent of her gardenia perfume made my eyes water as she cornered me between the produce displays. Her diamond bracelet caught the light as she alternated between veiled threats and bribe offers if I'd stop this nonsense. The firmness of the apples I gripped grounded me as I feigned confusion, playing the part of the heartbroken ex who had no idea what she was talking about. As she stormed away, the clicking of her expensive heels echoing on the tile floor, I added her recorded threats to my growing collection. 3 weeks after their truncated honeymoon, Marcus and Olivia appeared on social media again, presenting a united front at a charity gala. His architecture firm announced his design had been selected for a major downtown development. The photos showed him standing with a cane, the results of my dedicated physical therapy sessions, while Olivia beamed beside him in a gown that cost more than my yearly salary. Rebecca called to tell me I should see how happy they look, and suggested I start dating again. The bitter taste of betrayal was familiar on my tongue, as I agreed pleasantly while forwarding the mechanic's sworn statement to the district attorney. While they celebrated their victory, I visited the rehab center where I spent countless hours helping Marcus regain strength. The familiar smell of antiseptic and sweat brought back memories of my exhaustion, my devotion, my foolishness. The same nurses who witnessed my dedication greeted me warmly, unaware that I was collecting affidavits about the thousands of hours I spent there, while Olivia was nowhere to be seen. The weight of the legal documents in my bag felt like armor as I smiled and shared cookies I'd baked with the staff, who once marveled at Marcus's miraculous recovery. At my kitchen table, with rain pattering against the windows and the scent of fresh coffee filling the air, I finally sent the email. Attached were bank records, witness statements, medical bills I paid, and time-stamped photos showing my constant presence during Marcus's recovery alongside Olivia's absence until his prognosis improved. I sent copies to Marcus, his law firm, the architectural committee that just awarded him the project, and select members of the press who covered his inspiring comeback story. My finger hovered over the send button only momentarily before I pressed it, feeling nothing but calm as I took another sip of my perfectly bitter coffee. The architectural award was publicly rescinded pending investigation into ethical concerns. The morning news played in the background as I watered my thriving houseplants, plants that survived my absence during the years I spent at Marcus's bedside. The media vultures descended on their perfect life, questioning the timeline of their relationship, investigating Olivia's whereabouts during Marcus's recovery. When my phone began ringing, Marcus's name flashing on the screen, I silenced it and continued making my breakfast, the sizzle of eggs in the pan drowning out thoughts of his panic. They arrived unannounced at my apartment door, Marcus leaning heavily on his cane. He still needed it when stressed, a detail from his recovery that only I would know. Olivia's makeup unable to hide her puffy eyes. The hallway smelled of Olivia's fear and Marcus's confusion as I calmly invited them in. "Please tell them we were together during my recovery," Marcus pleaded, clearly repeating the lie Olivia had constructed. "Tell them she was there too." The afternoon light caught the desperation in his eyes as I slowly shook my head and played the recording of his mother's testimony about who really sat by his hospital bed for 3 years. When they left, Olivia's threats echoed in the stairwell while Marcus remained ominously silent. Olivia's family attorneys filed a defamation lawsuit against me. The certified letter arrived on a sunny Tuesday, the paper feeling unnaturally heavy in my hands. Last time around, this tactic worked. I couldn't afford proper legal representation and retracted my claims out of fear. This time, I was prepared. I'd been making payments to a prestigious law firm for months, setting aside funds from my new career specifically for this moment. The leather chair in my attorney's office creaked as I leaned forward to sign the countersuit papers, my hand steady as I authorized the release of all my evidence to the court. Rebecca ambushed me at our parents' anniversary dinner. The smell of Mother's signature roast filled the dining room as my sister launched her attack. "Haven't you done enough damage?" she hissed while our parents were in the kitchen. The candlelight caught the angry flush on her cheeks. "Olivia's family was going to invest in my business. You've ruined everything." Rather than argue, I placed my napkin beside my plate and retrieved copies of Rebecca's text messages to Olivia. Messages discussing how to keep me quiet and discredit my story for financial reward. Our parents returned to find Rebecca pale and silent, staring at evidence of her betrayal while I calmly poured more wine for everyone. Dr. Chen attempted damage control by releasing statements about Marcus's recovery being a team effort. The morning talk shows praised the dedicated physical therapist's humility, while I forwarded evidence of his romantic relationship with Olivia to the medical licensing board. The cool keys of my laptop felt satisfying under my fingers as I submitted documentation of how he falsified Marcus's progress reports to help accelerate his discharge directly against medical advice once Olivia decided she wanted him back. The ethics violation investigation made the health section of the local news within days, the reporter's voice providing background noise as I prepared for my job interview, a position I couldn't take in my previous life because I was too busy caring for Marcus. When the mechanic finally testified publicly about who paid him to tamper with Marcus's brakes, I wasn't even watching the news. I was at the beach, my toes digging into warm sand as the waves crashed rhythmically against the shore. My phone buzzed constantly with notifications that I ignored in favor of finishing my novel, a luxury I never had time for before. Only when the sun began to set, painting the ocean in shades of orange and pink, did I check the dozens of missed calls and messages expressing shock, support, and apologies for ever doubting me. The salty breeze cooled my face as I turned my phone off again, refusing to let their crisis interrupt my peace any longer. Marcus appeared at my workplace, haggard and broken. The fluorescent office lights highlighted the dark circles under his eyes, the tremor in his hands that returned when he was under extreme stress, another detail only his caregiver would recognize. My coworker stared as he dropped to his one good knee, begging for 5 minutes of my time. The leather of my new office chair was cool against my back as I agreed to hear him out in the conference room. "I didn't know," he kept repeating, his voice cracking. "Please believe me, I didn't know she caused the accident." The air conditioning raised goosebumps on my arms as I simply asked, "Would it have mattered if you did?" His silence was the only answer I needed. A note slipped under my door contained a single line, "Stop now or you'll need a caretaker of your own." The paper trembled in my fingers, not from fear but anger. This tactic worked in my previous life because I had something to lose. Now, I photographed the note, added it to my evidence file, and increased the security on my apartment. As I fell asleep to the distant sound of city traffic, I wondered, who was desperate enough to threaten me, and what did it reveal about how close I was to the complete truth? An encrypted email arrived from someone claiming to be Olivia's former roommate. The message promised evidence that Olivia had done this before, another accident arranged for a previous boyfriend who threatened to leave her. My heart raced as I verified the sender's identity through social media traces. Could there be another victim I knew nothing about? And if so, how might this change everything about the case against her? Marcus was rushed to the hospital with symptoms resembling his earlier complications. The news reached me through mutual friends, along with accusations from Olivia that my harassment caused his relapse. As I drove through rain-slicked streets to confirm his condition, one question pulsed through my mind. Was this a genuine medical emergency, or another manipulation tactic as the legal walls closed in around them? The mechanic who agreed to testify suddenly went silent. His phone disconnected, his apartment empty, his family claiming no knowledge of his whereabouts. The police seemed unconcerned as I paced my apartment, the floorboards creaking beneath my anxious steps. Had he been paid off, threatened, or worse? And without his testimony, would the case against Olivia collapse? Rebecca appeared at my door late one night, mascara streaking her cheeks, the smell of whiskey on her breath. "There's something else you don't know," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. Before she could continue, her phone rang, Olivia's name flashing on the screen. She silenced it with shaking hands, looked at me with terror in her eyes, and asked, "How good is your security system? What truth could be dangerous enough to frighten even my self-serving sister?" During a routine evidence review, my lawyer discovered inconsistencies in the timeline, moments from the day of the accident that didn't align with my recorded memories. The leather portfolio felt heavy in my lap as I stared at the chronology spread before me. "You're sure you were at work when you got the call about his accident?" she asked, tapping a manicured nail against the hospital intake form. "Because according to this, you were already listed as present when he was admitted." A chill ran down my spine as I struggled to reconcile the contradiction. Was there a part of that fateful day I completely blocked from my memory? A plain envelope arrived containing only a photograph, Marcus and Olivia together at a restaurant, dated 2 days before his accident. This conflicted with their official story that they had broken up months earlier. More disturbing was what was captured in the background. My sister Rebecca at a nearby table, clearly watching them. As I held the glossy paper under the lamp, squinting at the details, the question loomed. Who took this photo and why send it to me now, just days before the trial began? The breakthrough came during deposition preparations. My attorney mentioned Marcus's trust fund offhandedly, a significant inheritance from his grandmother that would fully mature on his 35th birthday or upon marriage, whichever came first. The documents felt suddenly heavy in my hands as pieces clicked into place. "When exactly did he turn 35?" I asked, already pulling up my calendar. My attorney checked her notes. 3 months after your scheduled wedding date, the wedding you postponed to care for him after the accident." The revelation hit like physical pain. Marcus didn't just leave me for Olivia. He had financial motivation to maintain our relationship until after his accident, then discard me once he no longer needed my care, but before any legal claim to his inheritance could be established. While organizing old photos for evidence, I found a memory card I thought lost in my previous life. The images flickered on my computer screen. Pictures from law school, a past I abandoned to become Marcus's full-time caretaker. Among them, a graduation photo with my former professor, now the presiding judge in Olivia's criminal case. We had lost touch after I dropped out, but the respect in her eyes as she handed me my partial year academic achievement award was unmistakable. I had forgotten my own potential, the career path I sacrificed. With trembling fingers, I dialed my attorney's number. There was no conflict of interest. The judge didn't even remember me. But the realization of who I was meant to be before derailing my life flooded me with renewed purpose. An investigator I hired uncovered offshore accounts connecting Olivia's family business to Marcus's architecture firm, connections dating back before the accident. The bank statement spread across my coffee table revealed a pattern of investments and partnerships that made no sense unless they had been planning a merger of families and fortunes for years. The evening light cast long shadows across the damning numbers as I finally understood the full scope of manipulation. My presence in Marcus's life had been an inconvenient obstacle to their dynastic plans, one that the accident was meant to remove. Instead, my dedicated care became an unexpected complication they needed to overcome. Dr. Patel, the neurosurgeon who treated Marcus, contacted me after seeing news of the lawsuit. The hospital corridor echoed with our footsteps as he led me to a private consultation room, explaining that he'd been troubled by something for years. From a locked drawer, he retrieved Marcus's original medical files, not the sanitized versions released during discovery. His paralysis should have been temporary with standard treatment, Dr. Patel explained, his voice barely above a whisper. But someone was adjusting his medication, hindering his recovery. The clinical smell of disinfectant made me nauseous as I scanned the documentation showing systematic sabotage of Marcus's treatment, sabotage that perfectly coincided with Olivia's hospital visits. They didn't just want him injured, they needed him dependent long enough to secure the inheritance and eliminate me from his life entirely. My former neighbor, Mrs. Abernathy, had always been nosy, setting up security cameras after a series of package thefts in our building. She contacted me after recognizing Olivia from news coverage, offering footage from the day Olivia visited my apartment 3 months after the accident. The video quality was poor, but the audio was crystal clear. Olivia describing exactly how she would win Marcus back once he could walk again, how his injury was unfortunate but useful for breaking us up, how my dedication made me pathetically predictable. The familiar scent of Mrs. Abernathy's cinnamon tea filled her small living room as we watched the footage together, her aged hand gripping mine in silent support as the final pieces of the conspiracy unfolded before us. Armed with complete evidence of the conspiracy, I met with the district attorney. The leather guest chair in his office creaked as I shifted forward, placing the comprehensive file on his polished desk. "This isn't just about the brake tampering anymore," I explained, my voice steady. "This is organized criminal conspiracy, medical fraud, financial crimes, and attempted murder." When the DA reviewed the evidence, his expression changed from professional interest to genuine shock. "We'll need protection for you immediately," he decided, already reaching for his phone. By evening, Olivia, her mother, and several associates were taken into custody, while Marcus discovered his accounts frozen pending investigation. The news broke across all local channels as I watched from the safety of a hotel room, provided by the same justice system that failed me in my previous life. Marcus's medical crisis proved genuine, stress-induced complications from his original injuries. Ethical obligations took me to his hospital room despite my attorney's objections. The antiseptic smell brought unwanted memories as I stood in the doorway, watching him struggle to sit upright in the same type of bed where I once helped him for countless hours. "You came," he whispered, reaching for my hand. The steady beeping of his heart monitor filled the silence between us as I remained just beyond his reach. His face crumpled with genuine remorse. "I know I don't deserve it, but I need your help again. No one understands my condition like you do." Marcus's mother intercepted me in the hospital parking garage, her aged face haggard with worry. The concrete echoed with her hurried steps as she caught up to me between parked cars. "He made terrible mistakes," she acknowledged, the tremble in her voice matching her shaking hands. "But you loved him once. You cared for him when no one else would." The setting sun cast long shadows through the garage openings as she continued. "The prosecutors will show leniency if you ask. If you tell them he wasn't involved in the planning." When she offered to sign over property as compensation for my years of service, the final illusion shattered. They still didn't see me as a person, only as a caretaker with a price. Olivia's defense team requested a meeting. In a conference room with windows overlooking the city skyline, they presented a settlement offer that would make me financially secure for life. The leather portfolio felt slick in my sweaty palms as I reviewed the numbers. Millions in exchange for amended testimony that would reduce Olivia's charges while still holding her accountable. "You'd have justice and financial security," her attorney argued, the afternoon light reflecting off his expensive watch. "Everyone wins." The zeros on the check seemed to blur before my eyes as I recalled counting pennies to afford Marcus's supplements, while Olivia vacationed in Europe during his recovery. My sister appeared at my apartment, clutching a rain-soaked box of old photographs. Water dripped onto my welcome mat as she begged for reconciliation, promising to testify about her role in the conspiracy. The scent of wet cardboard filled the entryway as she sobbed. "I was jealous. You were always the good one, the smart one. When Olivia offered me recognition and opportunity, I convinced myself you would be fine." Her mascara tracked down her cheeks like black tears as she gripped my hands. "Please, we're family. Tell me how to make this right." The courtroom fell silent as I took the stand for my final testimony. Afternoon light streamed through high windows, illuminating dust particles dancing in the air between me and the defendants. Marcus sat with his family, Olivia with her defense team. Both watched me with expressions of desperate hope that I'd show mercy, minimize their roles, offer them a path to redemption. The microphone amplified my steady breathing as the prosecutor asked if I had anything to add to my testimony. "No," I stated simply, meeting each of their eyes in turn. Everything I've experienced, twice now, speaks for itself. When the defense attorney pressed me about forgiveness, about Christian charity, about moving forward, my answer remained the same: a calm, unwavering no. The simplicity of refusal felt like freedom as I stepped down from the witness stand, ignoring their pleading eyes as I walked past without a backward glance. 2 years after the trial concluded, I stood on the deck of my small cabin, watching sunrise paint the distant peaks gold and pink. The crisp mountain air filled my lungs as I sipped coffee from a handmade mug, a gift from the local potter whose classes I now attended weekly. Below, the valley town was still shrouded in morning mist, looking more like a painting than a real place. My novel, inspired but not defined by my experiences, sat completed on my writing desk inside. My agent's enthusiastic email about publisher interest could wait until after my morning ritual of silence and gratitude. Gratitude for this second chance at living unburdened by others' manipulation. The university lecture hall fell silent as I concluded my presentation on patient advocacy law. The projector hummed quietly in the background as students began their thoughtful questions. My law degree, completed in this second life without interruption, hung in my office alongside awards for my work establishing a foundation that provided legal support to caregivers caught in abusive situations. When a student asked what inspired my specialized focus, I shared only that I believed every person deserved protection from those who would exploit their compassion. The afternoon sunlight streamed through classroom windows, warming my face as I felt the rightness of this path, the path I was meant to find all along. Our parents' 50th anniversary celebration brought unexpected reconciliation. Rebecca and I navigated a cautious new relationship. Not the blind trust of childhood, but something more honest. The garden party smelled of mother's roses and fresh-cut grass as Rebecca introduced me to her fiancé, a kind-eyed therapist who helped her understand her own patterns of jealousy and sabotage. When she nervously showed me ultrasound photos of the niece I'd meet in 4 months, I surprised myself with genuine emotion. We sat on the garden bench where we once played as children, the wooden slats warm beneath our hands, and discussed names, nursery colors, and her hopes that I'd be part of her daughter's life. Hopes I found myself willing to consider. News of Marcus and Olivia occasionally reached me. His reduced sentence for cooperation, her longer incarceration for orchestrating the crime. The financial restitution payments arrived monthly. Money I donated entirely to spinal injury research. When mutual acquaintances awkwardly mentioned seeing Marcus working at his community service placement, I felt neither satisfaction nor pain, only a calm acknowledgement that justice functioned as it should. Sitting in my garden as butterflies danced among the flowers I'd planted, I realized I no longer tracked the anniversaries of the accident or the betrayal. Those dates had lost their power as I'd filled my calendar with moments of my own creation. On the 5th anniversary of my rebirth, I boarded a plane for a solo journey through countries I once only dreamed of visiting. The aircraft hummed beneath me as coastal landscapes gave way to open ocean, endless blue stretching to the horizon. The stranger in the next seat asked if I was traveling for business or pleasure. Life, I answered simply, smiling at their confused expression. My journal opened to a fresh page as the altitude increased, and I began to write not about the past that once consumed me, but about the unfamiliar territories ahead, both geographic and emotional. The flight attendant offered champagne as we reached cruising altitude. I accepted the glass, raising it slightly in a private toast to the woman I'd become, not defined by caretaking or revenge, but by the freedom of choosing my own story with each new day.